Hello, my fellow readers. This is I, Dark Symphony 777 with another fanfiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story, and finally, it's my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, the story review of is God's Blessing on this IRL streamer. It is a by Boring Bone, and I like the story, but there's one really, really big issue with this story. We'll talk about that when I get to it. But yeah, you can kind of already see just from looking at the screen what it is. But let's actually go over the plot. So, in essence, this story is actually a spin-off of God's Blessing on this IRL world, which is actually supposedly like a somewhat popular Konsuba fanfiction that involves Kazuma, instead of dying via tractor and pissing himself, he actually is a NEET, like a shut-it who somehow manages to survive and kind of live in Tokyo in Japan. I almost said Tokyo because he doesn't live in Tokyo, he lives somewhere else. Point is, he runs into Megumin, like a real life version of various characters in that story. In that one, he kind of runs into Megumin. And this one, he kind of is with Aqua. And of course, I picked this one because Aqua's best girl. Come on, who doesn't love Aqua? Who doesn't love the useless goddess, or in this case, the useless streamer? So, for context, the plot of this story is Kazuma is something of a shut-in. He basically spends all his time playing games, just going on MMOs, just kind of doing nothing. Especially, he's essentially just doing nothing. When one day, he gets a meeting from this girl named Mizuhara. And she's basically there to pull an Aqua. Mizuhara is basically Aqua. I want you, Kazuma, to do my homework. Please? No. But why? No! Do your own homework! Sad Aqua noises. More or less, Mizuhara is basically is still a pretty big idiot. And Kazuma, at first, basically just humors her. Just, okay, I'm gonna do your homework. Deliberately gets the questions wrong. Basically, just like, yeah, that's what you get for kind of trying to make me do your homework. And eventually, Aqua, in actuality, or Mizuhara is actually Aqua, a streamer who cosplays as, well, the big old useless goddess that we know and love. And thus, Kazuma is actually his top donator. Is her top donator. And he actually discovers that Aqua and Mizuhara are the same because he kind of accidentally spills tea on her. She has to get dressed. He gives her a shirt that is specifically signed on only one person, and she kind of rushes herself into the stream wearing that shirt, and he's like, wait a minute, that shirt, that's my shirt, wait a minute, I gave that shirt away. Oh, that bitch. And we got a very hilarious moment. It's like, you probably don't even donate to me. He said, I'm RNG God. Oh God, you're my top donator. Don't leave me. It's really goofy in the beginning, but it gets more emotionally serious as the story goes along because they are growing. The story takes place over the course of several years, probably like 8 years, about like 3-4 years. Aqua manages, to befriend him, and then they eventually realize they kind of have feelings for each other. Aqua eventually gets Kazuma to basically, in essence, stop being a NEET. I want you to come to school with me. It's like, why do you want me to come to school? It's because I want you to come to school because I want you to, like, leave behind this little weird lifestyle, because look at your family, they're taking care of you, but eventually they won't take care of you. And Kazuma even realizes that, yeah, maybe it's worth it. In essence, he's sacrificing his safety in order to chase possibly a relationship. And that's ultimately the theme of the story, is sacrifice. Like, Kazuma's Kazuma's parents sacrifice a lot of their life in order to not only support Kazuma's neat lifestyle, but also eventually support him going out on his own. It's sacrifice. Aqua's parents also heavily sacrifice their own livelihoods and their own physical health because they're both famous surgeons in the story to essentially allow Aqua to live on their own. And they're doing that because they do care about Aqua. And I'm so used to calling her Aqua because her name's not actually Aqua, it's Mizuhara. But for context, I'm just going to call her Aqua. Her parents basically just let her live on her own. So she's basically lived in a high class apartment by herself for implied to be several years at that point. She doesn't really have anyone to cope with because she's essentially kind of had to force herself to spend a lot of time online because that's the only way she can actually truly communicate with people without kind of being vain. And this is actually revealed. It is actually better shown at the end of the story, where the end of the last chapter actually has it from Aqua's point of view, and Aqua visiting her family, and then realizing very quickly that her family is sacrificed so much of their livelihoods to try and take care of her that they physically cannot be there for her. In essence, sacrificing something that making Aqua happy, but at the same time, Aqua's not happy because she really wants a parent. She wants to be there with her family, but they can't do that because they're trying to basically keep a roof on her head. It's a very give and take story for what it's trying to pull, and I really like that. I really appreciate what the author was trying to do with the story ultimately in trying to showcase the growth of both Kazuma and Aqua over the course of the story, seeing how they grow into young adults and they actually do genuinely fall in love. Like they even consider it's like, will we even love each other past a certain point? And at the end, they even start at the end of the story. They literally discuss: should we have kids in the future? Should we get married? And realizing, yeah, they can see each other, falling in love and going the distance and having a family and all of that. And I think it's a very touching and very, very humorous take because, of course, Kazuma and Aqua are still Kazuma and Aqua. They're just basically snark. They just basically snark at each other, and that's basically why Aqua fell in love with Kazuma, because Kazuma is honest to a fault. And it's like, please be honest with me. You're an idiot. Thank you. and and Kazuma appreciates Aqua for basically helping him out and dragging him out of this shut-in hole, and realizing that, hey, I want to be there for you. Like I did something impossible. I got lucky with the most popular girl in school. I want to make this work. I want to go the mile. And I think that is very touching for what you're trying to do, because it's very much it's not supposed to be like a deep romantic story, because again it does lean a little bit into the Konosuba tropes by having them be completely another idiots to each other. That's part of their charm. But I do appreciate what the author was trying to do with the plot and ultimately tying into the theme of sacrifice and how it evolves that theme over the course of the story through their character development and how they interact with their characters, and understanding sometimes when you sacrifice something, you have to if you're doing it for a good reason. Like they consider right before Aqua goes to visit her parents, Cosmo basically is willing to sacrifice Aqua to keep a job because he's fallen in love with actually being a tutor. He becomes a private tutor at the end, but he's still willing to wait. But he's not going to pursue Aqua if she chooses to stick with her family, because ultimately you're sacrificing one thing for the other, and he doesn't want to, and he would rather sacrifice Aqua than sacrifice his job, because give and take. And I think it's it's better executed in other stories that I've read, but the execution in this story is not bad. It's above average, not the best I've seen, but still pretty good. In terms of the character, there's really only there are other characters, like Megumin shows up periodically. She's actually a VTuber. Uh, there's like Michan and Mitsubi Mitsu Mitsurugi or something like that. Soccer player. My, Mitsu. The thing is, I'm thinking of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards because his name is very similar to a Yu-Gi-Oh archetype. He's basically a soccer. He's very popular. He kind of shows up. There's like a small group of guys. They call themselves the salsa. Cosmo calls them the sausages because the story takes place primarily from Kazuma's point of view, with the exception of that one part in the last chapter. So he kind of calls them the sausages. There's Kono being an idol, but ultimately, when it comes to just the main core character, it's quite literally just Kazuma and Aqua, and I think they're really well done. They're nothing spectacular, but their characters do tie into the theme with them growing up and realizing that sacrifices are something that kind of has to happen with their relationship to work. Like they have to sacrifice some things in order to understand that to better themselves in a certain way. Like when it came to wanting, like thinking about what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Aqua wants to stay as a streamer as much as possible. Cosmo was willing to be like a office slave. Aqua's like, don't you want to be a streamer with me? And we can do all that together. And Cosmo thinks about it, and he realizes, no, I'd rather sacrifice, the freedom to do the streaming thing because he's not really passionate about it, to pursue a more stable job in order to better finance Aqua. Because think about it, come 5, 6 years, will he still be popular as a streamer? No, probably not. Maybe he might. So he would rather have the guarantee steady pay to help keep them afloat, and Aqua can get like the super extra money from streaming. So that way they have so that way they have extra. So basically a main pay and then a big safety net as much as they can afford. I think I like that, and I think it does play into the theming as well, like the job and how they interact with everyone. I really love their dynamic. It's very Kazuma and Aqua. If you never seen Konosuba, just watch any clip of those two, and you pretty much get an idea how they behave in this story. They're just basically just hilarious with each other. They bounce off each other really well. I like how the author handled the relationship as well, because the relationship is very, very touching and very realistic for that style of very natural, like sort of like starting as like acquaintances, then going into friends, then slowly building it up and realizing they do genuinely have feelings for each other. I really like that. It really plays into what the story is trying to tell, and it is fun. Grammar and sentence structure. This is where it gets really, really bad. If you noticed, I didn't particularly move the screen a lot because I wanted you to pay attention to what you see on the screen. What is this sentence structure? I'm sorry. No, this is a horrible way to format a story. It's really clunky, and it also causes issues when you're trying to read up to a certain speed, because now you're just getting ahead of yourself and you don't even know which characters are speaking. It's more than one character, because like, and then a separate sentence basically says this. It's very it's this ultimately is really bad. Like it's like, look at it. It does get slightly better in later chapters. I guess it's chapter 5. See, it does get slightly better, and it does get more firm, but it's still very clunky because it's still trying to go like stick to the formatting of chapter 1, like the earlier chapters. I get why you author want to do it, to kind of keep up continuity. It's like, I don't want to change the writing, even though it's very clear that his writing does get better as the story goes along. But the author just wants to keeps the writing style as consistent as they can, to try and just have a little fun and all that. I can respect that. I don't think it was the right call, because I honestly think the author should have went back and reformatted the entire story. But I can respect the fact the author wanted to try and keep a sense of continuity about the whole thing. I really respect about that. Pacing. I do think the story is paced really well. I do think, being a 130,000 story, it is told over the again, it's told over the course of several years because they started in high school, and then by the end of the story, they're pretty much graduated college or the Japanese equivalent to college. So a long time happens, and I like and it does have a lot of time skips. This is an acceptable story to do a bunch of time skips because of the simple fact you have to stretch their entire relationship over the course of multiple years. So it makes sense to kind of focus on the more important events as the time goes on instead of focusing on like a specific certain frame of time. It is a very common thing over stories that take place over a long time frame that you want to pick and choose which parts of that time frame you want to do, and I think it does. The story does it perfectly, and it really does feed into the pacing and everything. And again, I like it. It's nothing flashy. Then something flashy, but it gets the job done. Now we get now we get what I recommended. Here's the thing. I like I like a lot of the story. I pretty much said outside of the formatting of the story itself, the story's good. It does a lot of good things really well. The formatting is just that bad though. Like this made it so hard to read at times because I just didn't know what was going on half the time. And I don't know whether or not I should dock it enough to not recommend it because some people are just gonna get so confused reading through the story. Like I understand you want to keep it first person. Fine, I can get behind that. Keeping it first person focus on Kazuma, that's respectable. But the framing and all the framing device and the sentence structure is just atrocious. Uh, I don't. Do I recommend it? I don't know. I have to say I don't know. Like this because again, the the sentence structure and everything is simply that bad that I kind of have to say I don't know whether or not it's good. It's that sentence structure is bad enough to kind of sink it below and put it into not wanting to recommend. I'm not sure if I want to recommend it because again, depending on the person reading it, they're just gonna they're just gonna have so much trouble reading the dang thing. But if you're able to understand what's going on and understand how the sentence structure works, it's somewhat worth it. Not completely enough to negate the framing, but enough that's like, yeah, you can risk it. Yeah, I think that's the safest route to go. Favorite part, easily the part focusing on Aqua. I really love the whole character usage, at showcasing Aqua's growth in this one half of this final chapter from the rest of the story because these chapters are very long, and so having this surprise switching of POVs from Kazuma to Aqua to kind of showcase how far she specifically came is very well done. I love the emotional beats of it. There's even like the little moment where Aqua basically meets this patient who her parents actually performed emergency open heart surgery on and saved her life, and it actually turns out to be Eris. Eris, the goddess that Aqua doesn't like. However, Aqua doesn't realize she's Eris, and and Aqua basically, they're talking. She gives her a gift. Eris Chris kind of gives her a hint that she might be Eris, and Aqua's actually seriously thinking like, "Is this Eris?" And then you see her thinking things through and goes, "Nah." After all, Eris, this chick clearly doesn't pat her chest. It's a great little humorous moment, but most of the story is just focusing on showcasing how much Aqua grew as a character, because again, most of the story focused on Kazuma. So having that perspective change and then showcasing how, like, the fact that Aqua realizes that her parents do genuinely love her, but because of the sacrifices they're making, they quite literally cannot be there for her. And she understands that, and she realizes that, and she even understands the fact that she's willing to go back to Cosmo. She's sacrificing, possibly fully disconnecting from her parents, losing any sort of familiar love with her, to be with someone that she does genuinely love. And even showcasing, like, when she's about to leave and she chooses to stay with Cosmo, her parents actually start crying and actually agree with her, realizing that, yeah, they they sacrificed themselves, but they also don't regret it, because they still made Aqua happy in their own way. They still kept her, they still tried to take care of her. They gave her as much as she wanted, and they even realized that they kind of messed up in their own way, but they can't, but not only can't they not change it, but they also would possibly even do it again, because ultimately that's what sacrifice is. You gotta give something up, and they rather give all this money to Aqua, so that way she can take care of herself, and so that way she has all this protection and all that, and be able to save a bunch of people's lives, because again, they're big surgeons. It's such a very tragic, bittersweet feel to this entire sequence of Aqua just realizing everything and then accepting it all, and realizing where she's coming from and where they're coming from. It's a very touching moment, and I actually admittedly cried when I read it. It's very sweet. So, was there anything I would change with this story? The formatting, just easily fix. Just go through this, fix the formatting. They're good. So that is God's blessing on this IRL streamer. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.